YouTube is Saiyan here, coming at you with another Spawn Powercardz video, and this time we are going to have a closer look at the character cards that you can find in this card game. So without wasting any time, let's take a look at them. Okay, so in this card game we have basically three factions of cards. If you guys are familiar with the Spawn universe, then the ultimate theme is basically the war between the forces of light and the forces of darkness, or heaven and hell. And earthly forces and beyond, i.e. the earth and its population and everybody there, is basically stuck in this war between these two major forces. So to narrow it down, we got blue cards, brown cards, and red cards basically in this game. If we look at the character cards, a couple of things to mention here. Obviously, when we are building a deck, the rules give no specific restrictions on how many cards we should put into a deck. I would suggest 45 cards because a starter deck comes with 50 cards, but if you take the mission cards out of it, you are stuck. Well, you're left with about 45, which seems to be a healthy amount of card anyway for a deck that doesn't use anything like mana in Magic the Gathering. So I think 45 cards is a healthy spot for a deck to start out with, and it also doesn't really give any restrictions, but it kind of advises on people only including a character card, one character card of a particular kind in a deck. Now again, I would be a little bit more flexible with this, just to sort of bring this game up into the 21st century and say that you are allowed to run up to 3 copies of any one particular character like anti-spawn, but you can still only have one of it in play, because obviously it would go against you know, legend rules or whatever it is that you would call it, that you know, you can't have more than one anti-spawn. Obviously you can't have more than one spawn in play or anything like that. Before we go into any of the specifics that you can see on the cards there on the side, I'd like to point out that, of course, Spawn is kind of like the centerpiece of this card game. All the Spawn cards that are in the game are going to come with brown background, which means they are earthly forces and beyond. And we got two very distinct types of spawns. We got the spawns where you can see there are some numbers down here, and you have spawns which don't. And usually the ones that don't will be something like giant spawn or ninja spawn or undead spawn or something like that. The numbered spawns are how we refer to them, the level spawns. They come in two different types. You either have normal spawn or you have medieval spawn. So giant spawn, for example here, or any other spawn that doesn't have a level number here at the bottom, works exactly the same as any of the other character cards in the game. But if we take a medieval spawn, which has a level number here, 46894, for this particular example, what you can do is normally the game allows you to play one character per turn and one enhancement per turn, and this happens in the third phase of every turn, which is called the call to action phase. Now if your medieval spawn has been in play and it's been damaged a lot, so either its hit point or its reasoning or its aura is close to 0, that means it's close to being knocked out. What you can do is you can play another medieval spawn. Bear in mind the names. You can't play a normal spawn to relieve a medieval spawn and vice versa, so they have to have the same name. But you are able to replace your nearly KO'd medieval spawn 4689 with a medieval spawn that has a lower level number, and this does not count towards the 1 recruitment per turn rule that we have in this game. So what this will obviously end up with is that you're going to have major duels between these spawns, because you normally should be able to keep this one spawn that you have in play for a long time. Another difference is why we still have these different spawns is, well, basically you are unable to replace these with a level version, but these spawns tend to have generally pretty nice sort of stats. Not to say that the level spawns don't, and obviously the higher level, the better the stats will be, obviously. But you still have the ability, if you for any reason don't want to run any of these level spawns, you can still just run these normal spawns and just be done with. So that is one of the that's what's called the spawn effect in this game, that you're able to replace higher level spawns with lower level spawns as long as the name matches, to sort of save them from being KO'd and be able to carry on the game with a relieved new character in play. So this put into aside, we are now going to talk about the usual generic characters. So if we take our anti-spawn as an example, we have a number of stats here on the side. So we start with PS, which is physical strength, which means that basically this is the base attack of any creature. So disregarding any of the attacks that we might find down here, you might opt to just use physical attack, physical strength as one of your attack method in the game when you're attacking another character. Speed, the second ability down here, determines who attacks first. So obviously the quicker your character, the quicker it is going to attack. Speed is very, very important, and you want it to be as high as possible, but it could also be a backdraw with being the quickest character. If your opponent can somehow defend the attacks of him, then you won't be able to strike back at slower characters once they have attacked you. And every turn, when you declare battle, you have to basically declare whether your character will be attacking, defending, or retrieving from the attack. But I will talk a little bit more around that when we talk about gameplay mechanics in a different video. Then we got basically these three stats: HT, which is hit points, RS, which is reasoning, and AU, which is aura. There are three ways to attack any creature or any character. So you can either attack them for any of the red attacks, which are physical attacks. They will go against the hit points, which is the physical, basically the hit points of the creature. You can also opt to do a physical attack, and that will always go against the red. Even though it's not colored red, it will always go towards the red. And in some cases, physical strength actually is listed as an attack somewhere down here. Not all the time. You can still opt to use it though. There is nothing stopping you to do so. There's just a little bit of a confusion with how these cards are made, but you can most definitely use physical strength as a close combat attack. I'm going to talk about close combat and long range attacks as well in a minute. So the three elements you can attack are these three stats down up here, and fortunately, unfortunately, you have to keep a tab of where the characters are with all these three stats. With the power booklet and even with the starter set, you get a big sort of like a roster, a matrix of numbers 0 to 30, which is there to help you to keep tab of these things. I've been putting some thought into this, and I think one of the best ways to go down with it is if you just buy a bunch of blue, red, and yellow D30 dice and always keep them next to the character or on the character. There's plenty of space here to put the dice on them, or just put it next to them, and then you don't have to worry about keeping a tab, because you're going to have more than one character in play most likely, and you're going to have to keep a tab of all their physical attributes and when you're going to be able to KO them. And now we get to the power section, which tends to combine not only movement powers like teleportation, but also defensive powers, and even the attacks tend to be listed here, but then they will be listed down here under the attack section as well. Again, that's probably an oversight. They probably shouldn't have been this confusing. Powers should be here, all the defensive powers, the movement powers, and then the attacks should just be down here in the attacks section. But it is what it is. So movement powers like teleportation, flying, or massive speed uh, must be added to the original speed of the character, and that will determine the final speed of the character. So in this case, Anti-Spawn has a teleportation of 15 and a speed of 15, which will give him a speed of 30, and that will be his final attack speed. Also, teleportation allows you to do long-range attacks against characters who um, don't have special speed abilities, and they aren't able to hit you back if you hit them for that. So that adds an additional layer of attack powers to these characters. And then we have always under the movement powers, we have invulnerability, for example, gives a 15 damage buffer. So if you want to attack Anti-Spawn, um, attack him for 1 hit point, you must attack with 16, because the first 15 red damage that you deal will be absorbed by the invulnerability of Anti-Spawn. So if you want to 1-hit KO Anti-Spawn, you would have to have a red attack which can deal 15 plus 17, 32 damage to Anti-Spawn, and that would do a 1-hit KO to Anti-Spawn. And you have red invulnerability. You also have blue powers that, like Magic Shield, that will allow you additional buffer defense against aura attacks. And you also have like willpower, which will allow you to have reasoning buffer as well, although there aren't many creatures that attack against reasoning. And then finally, at the bottom, you have Magic Blast there, for example, which also comes up down here as an attack. So on top of the physical strength attack of 16, which you can apply against any creature's hit points, Anti-Spawn also has, yet again, physical strength listed down here, but again, as I said, not all the characters has this specifically written out. That doesn't mean they don't have it, they always have it. Again, this is just a card error. There's a little bit of inconsistency between the cards. And Anti-Spawn also have a Magic Blast of 14, which deals 14 damage against the blue aura physical attribute. And then we have affiliations down here. They don't really do anything in this game unless a specific enhancement card refers to something like this. That could be important every once in a while. So basically, the attack types are two. You either have long range, like Magic Blast, or short range, like the physical attack. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as to say that all red will be short range attack and all blue will be long range attack. You kind of have to figure it out. And what I am going to start working on is basically build a sort of like a database of which attacks are short range, which attacks are long range. So if you ever feel like picking up this card game, then you can just go and refer to that. I'll have it on Google Drive and anybody will be able to download it. So in a normal attack, you can decide that Anti-Spawn will maybe attack for physical strength of 15 against somebody else's hit points. Or you can decide that, okay, well, actually, Anti-Spawn has a teleport of 15. I have a guy out there that doesn't have any teleport skills, like, for example, this Giant Spawn doesn't have any movement skills, as you can see. So you can actually go and use your teleport skill to deal 14 points of Magic Blast, which is a long range attack, to Giant Spawn, and that would actually deal him 13 minus, we had 14 attack, so we take 6 of that because Giant Spawn has a anti-aim magic shield of 6, so that's 8 damage against Giant Spawn's aura. That would leave him with 5 points of aura that he can still take before he's knocked out. So that's basically the gist of the character sort of sheet that we have here on the side. And yes, indeed, it is a little bit confusing because not all the characters will have physical strength listed as an attack, but they always have it available to themselves. It will always be a red attack against hit points. And also the teleport skill or flying skill, any type of movement, must be added to the speed to figure out the final speed of the character, so 30 in this case. And also if you have teleport, you can use long range attacks like Magic Blast to deal damage to opponents who don't have movement abilities like Giant Spawn. He doesn't have any. He doesn't have flight. He doesn't have teleport. He doesn't have quick speed. Nothing like that. Which also means Giant Spawn, even if he's defending, he cannot hit back anti-spawn if anti-spawn decides to do that type of attack. Right. I hope this made sense. It is a little bit confusing, I get it, but this is a very old card game. The last thing I want to talk about is this little E circle down here at the bottom. There are some lower power characters like Tiki Taki who basically has this E symbol there at the bottom, which allows you to play an additional enhancement card the turn you play this character. Not only that, but if you play Tiki Taki in your call to action phase, you also get to draw a card. So, because the characters that have the enhancement ability are normally much lower power than the characters that don't, the reason why you still want to play them is because they draw you a card when you play them and they allow you to play an extra enhancement each turn. And normally in your call to action phase you can only play one enhancement and one character per turn. So this sort of overrides that rule, which just makes these characters a little bit more versatile. Another thing why I'm holding Tiki Taki in my hand is because she's the only character that I found so far who actually is able to deal damage to reasoning. She has a Mind Blast attack there, and I know it's difficult to see it. You might not be able to see it because of the yellow color, but she has a Mind Blast attack of 12 against reasoning, and she's the only character that I found so far who's able to do any type of attack against reasoning, which I think is really cool. It makes Tiki Taki one of the best enhancement characters in the game. So I hope that these little explanations kind of made sense. They are somewhat confusing, but don't forget this is a game from 1995 and they didn't really game test, play test this game as much as, you know, maybe developers would nowadays. But I think this kind of adds to the charm of this particular card game, and I certainly feel that the art, the illustrations more than make up for these little errors, these little hiccups. Stay tuned, guys, because there will be more videos on deck building, on gameplay mechanics, and how the how this whole game kind of functions. Because it's not an easy game to play, but it could be quite rewarding if you really get into it. But for now, YouTube, Bussy and signing out. Peace.